afternoon, and thank you for your patience as the Mark Thompson show wound down and the Nikki Maduro show began. And again, we're going to have a time change coming August 1st, which I'll mention in just a moment. But thank you for your patience and thank you for being here on the Nikki Maduro show. I'm Kim McAllister filling in for Nikki, who is at her second job in San Francisco today. We've got a lot of things coming up. First of all, I wanted to talk to you about something going on near Travis Air Force Base that a listener, Julie, forwarded me the story about last night, and it's so interesting that I really want to talk to you about it today. Also, we'll look at this comment that came in on after hours. So if you watch the show and it's recorded, you can leave comments afterward as well, not only in the chat during the live show, but afterward. And we always go back and read those. This comment came in for the Mark Thompson show yesterday. It was about former President Trump, and it really got me thinking. So I'd like to present a question to you regarding that as well. This man who was hiking in Death Valley did not survive. He was interviewed earlier in the day by reporters talking about the heat. By the end of the day, he was dead. We'll talk about that. There's some issues with the trust that Dianne Feinstein's husband left behind. We'll cover that as well. We'll talk a little bit about abortion in Missouri and spying from China. That all before we end the show with an amazing visit from Tim Sika, who has seen Oppenheimer. He has seen the Barbie movie. And so we'll talk about that. Uh, do want to tell you about the time change, though, because we will have a flip flop come August 1st. So Nikki Maduro's show, which is currently on from noon to 2, is flipping from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We used to be on in the mornings on KGO, so we kind of figured starting your day with the Nikki Maduro show is easy for a lot of people. And then Mark Thompson will take it from 11 to 1, leaving that extra hour right there at the end that used to be filled by Nikki. So what we'll do is a show called The After Party Live. I'll do that show, wrapping up all the things we talked about on Nikki and Mark's show, plus some late breaking news and some extras. John Daly will be here, helping me get the show off the ground, commenting and helping produce and helping set the show up and all that stuff. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to do an extra hour. And hopefully, you guys won't be too tired of me for a fifth hour. We'll see how it goes and we'll see whether you like it or not. If you would like to sign up, you can go to theafterparty.live, theafterparty.live. That will forward you to the link to YouTube where you can click subscribe. So the more subscribers we have, the more stuff YouTube will allow us to do. And so I appreciate your signing up today, you're subscribing. Just a click, it's free to subscribe. And I thank you for doing that if you can. Actually, right now, just go ahead and make it happen. Um, and so thank you for that. Of course, the Nikki Maduro show is also crowdfunded. You can also free of charge. Click the like button, the thumbs up button, which helps us with YouTube. And we do have a website here as well, thenikkimaduroshow.com, where the Patreon and PayPal links are for people that want to help us fund this show. And of course, the super chat is live. And already I am seeing the super chats pop in with Luis, a $5 super sticker. Thank you, Luis. Here's to the pre-after party. Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it too. I kind of envision it as almost like a beach party at a tiki bar, just kind of mellow, relaxing, grab an afternoon lemonade or a cocktail or whatever, and let's just talk about some stuff. Maybe that sounds silly, but that's kind of how I envision it. Oh, the lady Beatrice with a $5 super sticker. She says, I'm surprised no mom group in America has pounced on the Barbie movie yet. I give it 3 weeks. Well, I haven't seen the movie. We'll talk to Tim about that. But what I just heard Michael Snyder say is it kind of paints the Barbie world as very feminist. So perhaps it's not like Barbie's all boobs and no substance. We'll see. I haven't seen the movie, but you might be right about that. It is Wes, always supporting the show, and I'm so grateful to you, Wes. $5 super sticker. Thank you. And what else do we have? Oh, Yeah, another one from the Lady Beatrice for $5. Here's for that first cup of coffee to have at your talk premiere. Again, that theafterparty.live is where you can go to subscribe to the YouTube show. And the show doesn't start until August 1st. So we're trying to get a little bit of video content up there before that. We'll see how that all works out. All right, let's dive into the Nikki Maduro show on this Friday. I was not aware of this story until it was brought to me by Julie. So, Julie, thank you for bringing the story to my attention. Let's look at a picture of Travis Air Force Base. A lot of vacant land around there, a lot of acreage. Well, apparently, there is a company snapping up 80 square miles of land right near Travis Air Force Base. The federal government is now investigating Flannery Associates. This is the company that has purchased this land near Travis Air Force Base. But who is behind Flannery Associates? That is the question. I was reading the story on ABC7, on Republic World, also on a website called The Daily Caller. And all of these investigative reporters are trying to dig in and find out who is it that owns this, that has purchased $1 billion worth of land near what's called a key Air Force base. 8 months they've been digging and they haven't been able to figure out who the real investors are behind this deal. The Wall Street Journal even involved in the reporting here. 5,200 acres, right? 80 square miles, $1 billion they have paid for land around the Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield Vacaville area. Um, Here's what we know. According to Wall Street Journal, Flannery has responded to requests from the media. They say they are a majority American owned company, 97% American owned. 3% of invested capital comes from Ireland and Britain. They say any speculation that Flannery's purchases are motivated by the proximity to Travis Air Force Base is unfounded. But in the last 5 years, Flannery has become the largest landowner in Solano County. Um, Flannery says it's owned by a group of families looking to diversify their portfolio from equities into real assets, including agricultural land in the Western United States. The problem is, people want to know who these people are. If you're going to be so close to one of our key Air Force bases, then we need to vet you and know who you are. So John Garamendi, who's a congressman from California, he is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee's Readiness Group, and his district is part of Solano County, including this land snapped up by the Flannery Group. He says the fact they're buying land purposefully right up to the fence at Travis raises very significant questions. Congressman Mike Thompson, whose district is also involved in this land purchase, they have asked the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to open up an investigation into land acquisitions involving advisors from multiple federal agencies who have not only the power to review, but also to block foreign acquisitions that are considered threatening to national security. So at this point, the Department of Agriculture is also looking into Flannery's investors since they're supposedly snapping up agricultural land. There may be an investigation with the Committee on Foreign Investments. With all this going on and 8 months worth of digging, you would think Flannery, if they didn't have anything to hide, would just say, "All right, here's the folks behind it. Here's the families that want to diversify their portfolio into real assets. Here's who's buying the land," instead of trying to block that. So, um, some of the land Flannery bought includes ownership of wind turbines, most in unincorporated parts of Solano County, that have been zoned for agricultural uses. It's yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Travis Air Force Base, known as the gateway to the Pacific, and this they play a major role in global U.S. military transport. So there's big concerns there. And it's a story that now that it's on my radar, I'll definitely be following it. I wonder what you are thinking about this land acquisition, Travis. Are you concerned? Do you think we're making a big deal out of nothing? Let's go to the chat and see what you have to say. OCB says it's probably China. They say 97% American owned. I don't know. Oh, Randy wants to know who to subscribe to. So you can go to this website. It is you type in the afterparty.live, and that should take you right to the YouTube. It should forward you to the YouTube site where you can subscribe. That's where. If I'm getting it wrong, let me know. Deidre has put it up there for us. So thank you for that as well. You can click on that link too. Wes writes, the agricultural land near a military installation, careful of the water, tends to be a problem around these bases. That's true. If it is zoned agricultural. And there's always, it seems to always be some wildfire burning in these hills and this land near Travis as well. Lori says, no buffer zone between where the public can buy land and base borders and fences. Yeah, I guess they put the fence up right where the base line ends. And on the other side of the fence is private land. So it can be bought and sold, right? Gordon, thank you for liking the Nikki Maduro show. Appreciate that. But I wanted to bring that story to your attention because I think it's interesting and it will be one that is ongoing. Another story that I saw, and this is a story we've been following as well. It's the Gilgo with a G, the Gilgo Beach serial killings in New York, where multiple bodies, I think as many as 10, have been found on this beach in New York. The suspect has been arrested. Let me show you a picture of him. His name is Rex Howerman. Sad that I know that without having to read it. But there's some information coming in now about the evidence and how he was arrested in this case. And it turns out that Mr. Howerman left pieces of his wife's hair on many of the victims inadvertently. They didn't mean to do it, but they did. And that is how he was tracked and arrested, from what I understand. So, the wife is upset. She is now filing for a divorce. And it's so interesting. This case is creepy and interesting. And I guess I can understand how having long hair, how it kind of gets everywhere and you're constantly shedding and how it could be on you. But if that's the case, how it took so long, if there was hair and there was DNA evidence, why it would have taken so long for him to be arrested. So let's watch a little bit of the coverage of this story from CNN. See if I can get the picture of Mr. Howerman down as they talk about the wife's hair and the evidence in the case. I'm not hearing any sound. Uh-oh. Nope. You guys hear anything? I can't hear anything. Maybe that's not going to work. Yeah, it doesn't look like it, does it? See, there it is. Okay. I got it. Of course, there's it's done. That was my big grand plan. That's what happens when you're running the show by yourself, which is why I'm so thankful that John Daly is joining me for the afterparty.live. But again, things are being dropped into my office as we speak. It's okay. All right, let's see if we can't now go back to CNN and take a little bit of a listen as this Gilgo Beach case continues to be very interesting. Here it is.
That home. We've also learned from sources that inside the home, in the basement actually, there was a locked door to a room, and inside that they found a cache of guns. I want you to hear from the Suffolk County Police Commissioner about what he said about that finding.
So over 200 guns. He had an arsenal in a vault that he had downstairs. So it's concerning regarding the guns being registered or legal or not, that's something that we're still taking a look at. But anytime somebody has that type of arsenal, we have some concerns.
Now, remember, initially it was we were told that was about 92 guns that they were thinking that Rex Heuermann had in his possession. So this is way more, and we hear it's anything from semi-automatic rifles to assault weapons. So investigators certainly going to hone in on why he had that many weapons.
Yeah, that is CNN reporting. And again, with the wife's hair and the DNA evidence, the evidence is mounting in this case against Rex Heuermann. All right. Let's talk a little bit, if we could, about the federal grand jury who is hearing testimony in Washington, D.C. Well, they did yesterday from an aide who was with former President Trump on January 6th of 2021. That's why I had that picture here. The grand jury, of course, deciding whether Trump should be indicted over his efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, and if that contributed to the riot. William Russell is a former White House aide who has previously testified before the grand jury investigating the Capitol riot. And the grand jury apparently taking the day off today. So the waiting game continues as to this, what I called the festival of legal trouble facing former President Trump and indictments likely coming his way, even more of them. And as I was reading comments yesterday on the Mark Thompson show's after hours posting by viewers, listeners, there was one comment that really stuck out to me. And I want to show it to you. It's from a woman named Suzanne. And she wrote this: Donald J. Trump, 45th and 47th President of the United States, with a heart sign. She had a little flag there as well. That's what she wrote. Should I have responded? No, probably not. Probably should have just kept on scrolling through. But I did respond. I said, Suzanne, we barely survived the 45th. I sure hope America's smart enough not to go to that ugly, dark place again. Thank you for watching. I mean, so you can, I mean, trying to have a civilized, response. I don't know if I should have responded at all, but the whole thing got me thinking, really, about, well, what if Suzanne is right? What if in Suzanne's dreamland, a 47th presidency of another presidency for Donald Trump does materialize? What if she gets her wish? And if she does get her wish, what would happen? So I wanted to put the question to you. I mean, maybe you're a fan of Donald Trump. I'm probably not, but maybe it is. What's I call it a worst case scenario, but for some, maybe it's a best case scenario. What do you think would happen for America if, in my opinion, God forbid, we had another Trump presidency? There are people that say we were fine before, we'll be fine after. You're all making a big deal out of nothing. But I don't think we're fine. I really don't. I think our democracy was tested the day of that riot. You saw that picture. It just brings back all those memories. And I think it was tested nearly to the breaking point. So, what if our country doesn't survive next time? What if our democracy is tested next time and, like AI, the Trump folks learned how they could do this better the next time around and the next election? I have concerns. I have worries. I think it's bad for America. So I wonder, what's your worst case scenario or best case scenario if there's another Trump presidency? Maybe you just don't want to even consider the notion at all. Yeah, let's see what you have to say. Total insanity, says Karen Cooper. Wes says if she's right, the great democracy experiment ends. That is my worst fear, Wes. It really is. Karen says we'll have a dictator Trump. But OCB, he says, then you'll survive the 47th also. Going along with that, we were okay before and we're okay after. Are we all still here? Right? I mean, are we all still living our lives, doing our thing? How much does it really matter to you? Gordon taking a different tact. Uh, Democracy could get destroyed, he says. I kind of agree with that. I don't want to be fear mongering, but it's my personal fear. Randy says Trump only lost, or Biden only won, the 2020 election by about 50,000 votes in four or so states. I thought it was a little more than that. I mean, I know it wasn't a massive margin, but I thought it was more than that. Karen says, no more democracy. GOP would be the only political party. She also writes, we and democracy are still in a lot of danger. Gordon says it was tested to the breaking point. Well, it survived. So what does that say? Does that mean it's going to survive again? It took a handful of people, Republicans, by the way, to stand up and be good people who put their faith in the Constitution and the laws of America. And they did that. Define not survive. I would say breaking our Constitution. So um, our election laws are no longer. And once that happens and you start breaking all kinds of constitutional laws, then our rights, which have already been slowly whittled away, are just blatantly trampled on. It becomes America, not the America we know, but a different political system where we don't have the rights and we don't have the freedoms that we currently enjoy. Harry says, for the average white family, nothing will change. For minorities, I worry. The other question is whether he'd stand down at the end of his term. These are valid fears, Harry. You're not wrong, my friend. These things roll around in my mind. My husband is laying awake worrying about our finances. I'm laying awake worrying about what happens if, right? Another Trump presidency happens. Kevin says, FYI, Trump has a disapproval rating of 63% per a Monmouth poll. I wonder if in that poll, Kevin, did they look at, is that, not only Republicans, is that Democrats as well? Who responded to that, and how wide was that poll? I'll look that up. Thank you. James says, read Agenda 47 to see what he and his team have in mind. It's terrifying. I don't know. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know about Agenda 47 and I'll look it up, but I don't know if, where that comes from and who wrote that and if it's accurate, but I'll check it out. Thank you, James, for bringing it up. Kim says, New York Times had a big article earlier this week about their plans. Lots of extra presidential power. Freaking me out, Kim. Kim says, kiss democracy goodbye. We have to stand up against that. I mean, and if people don't, that's the thing. If people don't see that, I don't even care if you're for abortion, against abortion, if you're, for less taxes, for more taxes, if you're for preserving rights, taking them away. I don't care. The one thing we should be able to come together on is the Constitution and laws of the United States, right? One thing, preserve our country. Doesn't everybody of all political parties at least feel that way? I mean, shouldn't we be able to agree on at least that? Man. Sandy, democracies all over the world are fragile. We used to be one of the strongest, but not anymore. Not since Trump in January 6th. And how do we not see that? Lori, hi Lori. She writes, to me, the presidency changed the culture of this country, just like 9/11 changed the country. I think it's true. I think it started with him running. Maybe the day the grab him by the pee comment came out, the tapes on that, and no one cared. Maybe that was the day things changed and things got truly ugly. And this kind of air of diplomacy, of being the better person, of electing the person who kind of morally rose to the top of the glass, that went out the window. And maybe that's when it all changed too, Lori. You're right. Kevin says it would be like if the Nazis won World War II. I'd like to think that it's not that severe. I'd like to think, Nazis if they disagreed with you, would walk up and shoot you in the head, right? That's what they did. The Trumpers get ugly about it and threaten you. But so far I don't see that level of violence. So that's why I don't like to compare the two. But it wouldn't be good. I'll tell you that, Kevin. It wouldn't be good. Nick says we already know what Trump would do. His team would exercise the unitary executive theory to install him in the White House for life. That is so anti-American. I mean, you look back at George Washington, didn't he, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an historian, but I believe that it was George Washington who didn't even want a second term, who said we should not have someone in power for that long. I think he ended up having a second term, but didn't want to, had to be talked into it. I just yeah, that is not what the founding fathers wanted. No. Ron Cook says Biden 81 million versus 74 million for Trump. Yeah, I thought it was in the millions. Thanks, Ron. But if you're looking at the states that put him over, it could be that Randy has a point with that. So I have to look at those numbers. Point is, Biden won. Thank the good Lord in heaven. Sylvia Banks says, I'm very concerned for my kids and grandkids. He's a wannabe dictator. We should be. I guess the days of just assuming, because it's always been this way, that it will always be this way, that America will always be strong in our democracy and the upholding of our Constitution, and that anyone we elect would love America enough to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Those days are gone. And I don't know anymore if I believe when someone puts their hand on whatever religious text or book that they believe in to swear to the oath. I don't I don't know if I believe them anymore. Randy says, even if Trump did become president again, we won't become a dictatorship. Not going to happen. The country will recover. I love your optimism, Randy. And there were people saying as well at the end of former President Trump's term that if he decided to stay in office, his feet wouldn't hit the ground, right? Because there would be members of the military or Secret Service members that would just pick him up and carry him out. You can't just, plant your flag in the White House and stay there if you haven't been elected. But there's been a lot of talk from what I understand, and even at the end of 45's term, about ways they could seize election machines and other ways to steal the election. One of the important things for me as an American, and I would imagine for you as an American, if you are, is to have faith in our election process. And if we don't believe things are being done fairly, if we believe either that things are being manipulated or that the truth is being manipulated, and there are questions put into place then about what's happening, I think that creates a real cleavage in what we're looking at as far as our faith in our government, our faith in our electoral process, our faith in the Constitution, and everything else. You can tell I'm freaking myself out, I'm telling you. Vilma, in a second Trump term, he will be weaponized. Yikes. The DOJ, the FBI, the CIA will have the closest thing to a dictatorship ever. Oh, Vilma. Yeah. Vilma's voicing my fears, I'll tell you. I just when President Biden ran against former President Trump the last time, I was writing postcards to send to swing states. I was getting together with groups of other moms in my kids' school. We would have postcard parties and mail them out. I felt like I needed to do something because America was in such trouble. And I feel like we need to do that again. We do. The only thing I can say is, in a good way, that's a little bit, more positive, is that California over the last couple of years has seen our population drop. And with that, you've seen people move to other states. We talked about it on the Nikki Maduro show before. They've moved to Idaho, they've moved to Texas, they've moved to Florida, they've moved to states that are more affordable. And some of them move for political reasons, but others move for financial reasons. Totally understandable. And if that's the case, then I hope that Californians are bringing reasonable, uh, thoughtful ideas to the voting booths wherever they moved. And maybe that's one good thing that we can see. Lisa writes, he didn't do much in office, but he did empower others in political office to govern to the far right. Wes says, I truly think the more liberal states may actually attempt to leave the union, kind of like Texas talks about doing sometimes. Is that realistic though? I don't know if that's realistic. I don't think you can just do that. That's Civil War type stuff, right? I don't think you can just I think that's a lot more difficult to do than to think about. Calvin says Republicans deliberately changing election rules in as many states as they can to win. Un-American, and it's still happening right now. And what is being done, Calvin? Are we not standing up against this? What is being done right now to prevent that? Lori. Um, she isn't right out. Former president himself says openly he was not prepared for government first time, and now he is. This is a good point and a fair warning. He's trying to remove checks and balances. The plan is in place and allies lined up. Got to fight against it, you guys. Karen Cooper says, not survive means our rights will be severely curtailed and we won't have a voice in how the country is run. Yeah. Harry says, Agenda 47 was written by Bannon and Miller. Okay, I'll look into it. I've been remiss. I haven't seen it, and you guys have. So thank you for pointing it out. I'll make sure right after the show that I look that up and read it. So thank you. Randy says Biden won Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, the 3 states that put him over the top in the Electoral College by 45,000 votes. I see your point. Thank you. Biden won by millions, but if you're looking at the Electoral College in those states, I get you. Thank you, Randy. Vilma says a second Trump presidency will change the rules of voting, possibly the Constitution. It will also change the role of women in our society. Yeah. I don't doubt that, Vilma, for sure. Harry says will become the realization of the Handmaiden's Tale if Trump is elected. And you know the crazy thing about that, Harry? I really don't think, because Trump was a Democrat before he was a Republican, right? I really don't think that Trump cares about whether women are able to have abortions or not, or whether we're able to buy birth control or not, or whether we're able to get the mifepristone, the abortion pill, or not. I really don't think he cares one way or the other. I think the only reason it's become part of his whole song and dance is because of the people who are supporting him. And he knows that if he continues to put those judges in place and those policies in place, then it doesn't matter how much of a complete buffoon, I'll even say a-hole, he looks like. They'll continue to support him because they may be more supporting the policies than the person. And he knows it. I mean, I'd like to say he's dumb, right? Because when he opens his mouth, that's kind of what I think sometimes. But behind that, there's logistics. There's scheming, plotting, and planning that's not so dumb. Randy's talking about Kim's comment, kiss democracy goodbye. He says the US won't end if Trump wins again. It won't be pleasant, but it's not the end of the US. Randy, I hope you're right. But my doomsday catastrophizing nighttime thoughts about the worst case scenario tend to go in the realm of what Kim's talking about, that the freedoms that we enjoy will be gone. I think that you have faith in the Constitution. You saw Republicans stand up last time to do what was right at the end of former President Trump's term. And they stood up against election lies. When asked to find votes, they said, can't do it, right? I think I like that you have faith in that, but I feel like next time would be scarier. And we already saw just the damage to the confidence in our elections and how powerful that has been. And while I want to think that you're right, Randy, I just don't have faith anymore because I saw kind of what happened at the end there and how close we came. No, maybe I'm freaking out again for no reason. OCB, the Constitution needs 75% of Congress. Not going to happen. Yeah. To make an amendment, a change. The after party live. Thank you, Harry and Deidre. Oh, for contributing to the launch of the new show. Thank you. Yes, there is a PayPal link on the top of the YouTube channel and the About section. So again, please subscribe theafterparty.live. Thank you. And thank you, John Daly, for popping in. Natalie writes, this exposed cracks and the public ignored and accepted. When the next rainstorm comes, so do the landslides as democracy crumbles. And then what are we going to do, Natalie? If your doomsday scenario is right, and I'm not saying it's not right or it's wrong. I'm saying it's a possibility. Randy doesn't think so. I think people that are wedded to the way America has always been and the way our laws have always been upheld say, doesn't matter who the president is, we have our policies, procedures in place, right? And those things will always be followed no matter who's in office. But I don't know. And so, Natalie, if you're right about that, then what do we do? What do we do as Americans? I mean, we can't even agree on, the fact that um, that the Constitution has been challenged, or that the most important thing is to uphold the Constitution and our rule of law. We can't even agree on that because we're putting a person as more important. We're putting, pro-choice versus anti-choice or pro-abortion as the top billing here instead of the laws and rules of the country. So, what do we do if we end up in that situation? What happens to you, Natalie? What happens to you, Harry? What happens to you, Randy? Lori? Karen? What are we going to do? What's Wes doing down in Florida when that happens? Do we all pack up, check out to another country? Do we just put our head down, don't say anything, keep working, keep hoping that we still have our house and that everything's okay, as long as we're quiet, we don't rock the boat? Is that what we do? Karen says a lot of what put the Nazis in power is what has been happening in this country now. Gordon writes, Trump would try to get rid of the same-sex marriage and abortion and contraception. Yes, that's true. Kevin writing, people at the 1936 Olympics never suspected they were such monsters until later. In the states that put Biden over, Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, the total vote margin was 45,000. Yeah, we got it. Lee writes, Kim, check out the lasting threat isn't the next Trump, but the MAGA base itself. Ooh. Los Angeles Times by Miles Taylor. Okay, cool. Thank you. I have to write it down. Thank you very much, Lee. I appreciate it. I will check that out. Appreciate it. James says, I'm seeing Pinochet did nothing wrong on right-wing message boards lately. Pinochet was a brutal dictator. Yes, true. Randy is correct. Using the Electoral College, Biden won by 60 to 80,000 votes. Thanks, Deidre. Yes. Vilma, my fear is that other people in other states may not see a second Trump presidency as a loss to our democracy. How long does it take them to figure it out? I mean, just because things go your political way doesn't mean that that's America, right? So great. All the policies that you want are enacted. Fantastic. Are you living large, or do you sense the loss that the freedom of everyone has been tampered with and changed forever? I don't want that. You could have a Democrat in office and all the policies that I like are in place. Pro-choice, everybody gets to choose who they love, right? Schools are fully funded. America's thriving, everything's great, good economy, everything. And if it takes away all the rights of half the country, I'm not happy with that. That's not America. It's not American. If you start pushing people down and stepping on them to get what you want, I'm out. Sylvia, Trump was a problem long before he ran for president. Yeah, but it's his presidency that really created issues for America. But thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate that. Randy says, look at the Republican attorney generals that stood up to Trump after the 2020 election. But if they hadn't, Randy, what was it? Like 5 attorneys generals, maybe a couple of state elections officials, and it could have gone either way because some of them didn't. And we're just lucky, fortunate that we had Raffensperger in Georgia, some of the folks in Arizona, right? Michigan, that did stand up. If those people hadn't been in place, if Pence had been able to have been pressured, this could have gone any different way. If even one of those people hadn't stood up, you can't bank on it. You can't bank on that happening again. OCB says they're confusing popular vote with electoral votes. Well, yeah, there's 2 conflicting numbers. That's true. Mhm. Louis' second Trump presidency. This is his doomsday scenario. He will remove the 22nd Amendment and eliminate term limits for presidents and declare himself king or Führer or whatever. Wes says, what if the fake electors actually succeed next time? Who's watching that, right? And and now you have elections officials in cities and states that were put into place because they saw what happened last time. They didn't have enough people in place overseeing elections. And so now you have more Republican Trumpies sitting in those seats, those offices in states and cities. I think it's different this time around, scarily different. Randy writes, even the right-leaning SCOTUS won't allow it, and the military will never go for it. I hope you're right, Randy, but there's a lot of, again, as you say, right-leaning folks on the Supreme Court. And if you've got a couple of them taking allegedly bribes and doing unethical things, then what's to say the ethics scandal continues when they back former President Trump to keep their money train coming? And what's to say that the military isn't mostly made of conservative folks that would back Trump? We saw that with police officers, even, who are supposed to uphold the rule of law, being at the riot and being among some of the defendants there. I don't trust. Sylvia says, I already signed up for the after party. Thank you, Sylvia. We appreciate you so much. I appreciate that. Gordon says Trump would pardon himself and all of the insurrectionists. Yeah, he has already said he would. Absolutely. Karen says, we'll see you there. Good. Karen signed up too. Thank you, guys. You're very nice. It is. Vilma does paint a picture. But that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know your worst case scenario. Why? Let's think of the worst case scenario and then let's use it. Let's take it and let's use it to fight, right? Let's say, think of the worst thing. Maybe it won't happen, Randy. Okay, great. I hope you're right. I really, really do. I don't want the worst case scenario, but I feel like I need it. I need it. I need to have it within so that I know what I'm fighting for. That's why. That's why I'm asking you this question. Maybe you guys might think I'm nuts, but I need that. Send more Californians to help. Then we have to live in Florida, though, Wes, and I love you, but I don't know if I'm moving there. I'm telling you. If Dems can get Dems out and vote, Trump will lose. Half of independents would vote for him. Yeah, it's about getting people out to vote. And I think Trump was so awful, right? And everything that happened there, that people were motivated to get out and vote. How do we motivate them again? How do we do that again and do it on a grander scale? Ron says, I think you're right, Randy, for those close states. Yeah. Lori says he's saying openly he's going to consolidate more power in the presidency and now knows how to do it. Listen and believe when he's telling us our plans. Yes. Yes. Listen and believe. Indeed. Gordon says, I think the Fed would stop California and Oregon getting out of the union. Vilma says, it seems most, if not all, Trump Republicans mouthing the words of loyalty and truth. They don't show it, though, by their actions. Yeah. I love America, they say. And then they do things that are hateful toward America. Agree. Karen Cooper, the GOP has been outrageous in their attempts to cheat their way into absolute power. They still are, and they are so ruthless, they may accomplish that goal. Yeah. Daniel, this is the new with another Trump presidency that we are just more divided and headed. I don't know what you're trying to say. What he says is the worst case scenario with another Trump presidency is that we become a new country under a dictatorship. Yes, on that we agree. Randy says there will be enough support in a Trump presidency to change the Constitution. Oh, there will not be, he says. There will not be enough support. And there will not be enough votes in Congress among the states to do it either. Again, Randy, from your fingers to God's ear, right? Dave says Trump cares about Trump. That's all. His world begins and ends with Donald Trump. I don't want a president like that. I want a president that puts America first and not him or herself first. That's what I want. Lori says, I honestly think that may be the reason the non-prescription birth control was pushed out. People are trying to preempt the possibility of outlawing birth control. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Sandy says another Trump presidency may not be the end of the US, but probably the end of democracy as we know it. I don't want that. I want us to fight against that. I might have to, on the after party live, we might have to have a couple postcard parties, you guys. We might have to really band together and do this. James says, respectfully disagree with Randy. Democracy is fragile. We saw that. I didn't think it was. I guess I didn't think about it. I never had to think about it. Then I saw it's how fragile it is. Ultimately, it depends on the good faith of those in power. We're in very serious danger. Yeah. I mean, your words give me the chills, James. It's the truth. I'm telling you. If you love America, I have tears. They're tears. I mean, it's tears. That's how scared I am about this. Calvin, remember the Trump wanting an environmental lawyer to take over the DOJ to seize voting machines and lie about evidence of fraud by Biden? He'll do that and worse if reelected. Gordon's talking about our standards, processes, and procedures. I don't know if that's enough. Sandy says if we elect a wannabe dictator as president, it's a serious danger to our democracy. James says people who value their freedom and have the means will leave the country. I hate to do that. It's like giving up on America. I hate to do it. Yeah. Yes, processes, protocols, and standards. Karen says, if we lose the democracy, we'll all be very unhappy, except for those at the top of the pyramid. Our lives won't be our own. It'll be a lot like Russia. Ooh, shudder. Lori, bringing up some history, remember that all citizens did not have all rights on paper until the 60s or 2010s, if you count same-sex marriage. This country is still young in the scheme of things, and our democracy is young and malleable. David writes, the fact that RFK is polling as high as 17% makes me shake my head in dismay. It seems like there's a lot of gullible Democrats too. Harry says, I don't see Trump being elected. He's 0 for 3 in the last 3 elections. Independents and McCain Republicans rejected him and his ilk. Ooh, we have to be very careful, though. I think what we have to do, and this was me in 2016. There's no way he's going to win. It'll never happen. Americans won't go for that kind of person. Grab him by the pee. He's cooked. He's done. There's no way. Then he wins, right? And I'm sitting on my couch with my mouth hanging open, thinking, what just happened to America? Having no idea how bad it would really be. And I feel like this time we have to assume that Trump will win. We have to assume that he will. And we have to fight like hell to make sure it doesn't happen. We have to assume the worst. Have to assume the worst case scenario. Have to assume he's going to get into office. Have to assume that if he does, it's going to be monstrously bad. And so we have to be incredibly motivated to help motivate others to vote. We have to do it. We have to do it. I can't help you do it on KGO anymore, right? My platform has been whittled down. So share the show, share Mark's show, share Nikki's show, share the afterparty.live. So we can get the message out. So your message gets out. So we can inspire people to vote. So we can inspire people to say, all right, we've got to assume that he's going to get back in. So we're going to fight like hell to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you for tolerating me. Wes says the thing is, conservatives are not much about liberty. They are about restricting people, practices they don't like from being visible. Yeah. Hi, Nick. Nick says the GOP only needs to control 2/3 of state legislatures to call for a constitutional convention and bypass amendment requirements. OCB writing, you have Congress that is in the check on the executive power. I trust in the founding fathers' architecture. Yes. Unless you have people in place that don't uphold that architecture. Unless you have people that put their hand on the scripture they believe in or whatever, Bible, Quran, whatever people use, and say, I promise to uphold and defend the Constitution, and then they turn around and they don't. And then what? And then what? And then we're in trouble. That's what. Randy says it's not luck or fortune. There are plenty of Republicans that are willing to do their jobs. I really hope you're right. I guess I've seen so much ugliness from people, and so many of the people that I thought would put America first that haven't, that I'm surprised by it. And so I no longer have faith in it like you do, Randy, but I sure hope you're right. Pence couldn't have changed the election even if he wanted to. And even if the current right-leaning SCOTUS isn't going to let this happen. Like I said, Randy, from your fingertips as you type to God's ears, because I seriously hope that you're right, but I don't think we can afford to assume that. I don't think we can afford to assume that. And so I don't care if you want to vote for Chris Christie, but we have to make sure there's no Trump. Have to make sure. We just have to. There's not an option. There was at least one election official that left Trump's computer tech break into voting machines to check for election fraud, all on video. I have to read that again. There was at least one election official that let Trump computer techs break into voting machines to check for election fraud, all on video. I have not seen that, Kelvin. I don't know if that's true. Again, another thing I'll look into, because I don't want to say something that isn't accurate, but usually you send me accurate stories. So I'm going with you on that. I didn't realize it, but that's scary. Randy says, do people not understand what it takes to change the Constitution? It is very hard to change the Constitution. But I think you can cheat the Constitution, right? Because Trump wasn't trying to change the Constitution when he allegedly tried to stay in power and sway the election and undermine the will of the voters and undermine American laws. I think there's ways of doing it without, having to go through the ratification process and all the things that make changing the Constitution, if not impossible, very, very difficult. Harry says, I don't think SCOTUS would have upheld fake electors. Assume that they would have, though. Assume that they would have. And now what does that say? Lori says, hopefully more Republicans are scared than are willing to say out loud right now. If this becomes more real, maybe they'll come through. I can't believe so many people are willing to see rights disappear. So my dad is a Republican, a conservative Republican. And we have some fun discussions, let me tell you. But he's willing to discuss and he's willing to entertain my ideas and he's willing to logically and reasonably consider my arguments and then come back with some of his own. And they're really good conversations that we have, and I enjoy them very much. And I feel like my dad is one of those Republicans who, he served in the Navy. He definitely would put America over party politics. And if my dad is any indication, there are Republicans out there who are reasonable people, who aren't Trumpers, who still may swing toward the conservative way, but they don't want to see America fall and they want things to be done right. And they're sad about what's happening within the party. So hopefully you're right, Lori, that there are more Republicans that are willing, um, that will come through what you're saying. That they don't want to see rights disappear, that they want to uphold the American Constitution. I think so. I think and as Randy mentioned earlier, you saw the people that did stand up, that saved us. Such a few people that saved us. And I think that's what has me scared is, what if it wasn't Raffensperger in that chair? What if it was somebody else that said, all right, you want me to find those votes? Let's do what I can do. Here's where I can find them. Calvin says, Supreme Court doesn't have ethics rules and would overturn an election anytime they like. You need to give our military leaders more credit than you do. Okay. Your total mistrust is problematic as well. Oh, Randy. I want to give military leaders trust. So a little bit about me. My grandfather was in the Army in World War II. His family came here from Germany. He spoke German and he served as a German translator in World War II fighting for America. My dad was in the US Navy during the Vietnam era. He was a sonar tech on nuclear submarines. My husband was in the United States Marines. I have not served, but every important man in my life has. I think people who served in the military, they have a mindset. They love America, many of them, the ones I have known. And so when you say I'm not giving our military leaders enough credit, I think my husband would agree with you. He would agree with you. He would say, yeah, there's no way. He'd be in your camp, Randy. My total mistrust, you say, is problematic as well. But I just saw how close we came, and that's why. It's like, what is that? And I'll be like who was it? Dan Quayle or George Bush, to mess up the cliche, fool me once, fool me twice type of thing. You got me once. Once you nearly led to the downfall of America. Twice, now I don't trust. And that's why, Randy. Because my foundation has been shaken. That's why. That's why. Wish I could be more like you. And we'll talk about you at the dinner table tonight, and my husband will agree with you. David says, do we really want this to come down to the military stepping in to stop Trump? That sounds pretty dangerous. Yeah, I don't want it to come to that either, David. Good point. Lady Beatrice, hello. She says, worst case scenario, women lose the right to everything. Votes, education, everything. Can you imagine? They wouldn't do that, would they? Like the Taliban in America, girls wouldn't be able to go to school? I don't think they do that. They do that? Randy again. You'd have to make constitutional amendment changes. It's not going to happen. Okay. Vilma says, in Russia, they teach their children how to think. The book family has already started that in our country. If critical thinking dies, so does this democracy. And Meredith, hi Meredith, she says Trump is an egotistical criminal who surrounds himself with similarly immoral leeches. Believe someone when they show and tell you who they are. I do believe that you are right, Meredith, and I do believe that he has showed me who he is, and now I distrust. That's why, Randy. Sylvia says, I don't trust the Supreme Court anymore. Clarence Thomas and his loudmouthed wife aren't helping. He should be impeached. And Harry, the democracy is not fragile. Look at Arizona's last election. Trump deniers all lost. Deidre, every year about 4 million Americans turn 18 and gain the right to vote. In the 8 years between the 2016 and 2024 election, that's 32 million new eligible voters. Also, says Deidre, every year, 2.5 million older Americans die. So in the same 8 years, that's as many as 20 million fewer older voters. Deidre's like, let's get those conservative votes to die out. Karen writes, there are people that really stand the most to lose are our children. We must get the younger generation of voters engaged. We had this discussion at the dinner table the other day, and I've done this topic longer than I wanted to, but you guys so good in the chat. We had this discussion. My son said something anti-Trump at the dinner table. He's 9. What does he know, right? And so we all stopped and kind of put our forks down and looked at him and said, explain what you mean by, I think what he said, Trump is a moron or something. He said something negative about Trump. Trump is a stupid head. Why do you think that? Well, just because he is. Well, you can't say something like that unless you have the facts to back it up. I don't think my kid was wrong, but I also don't want my kid to say something just because I said it. I want him to understand and know why. So when you talk about getting the younger generation of voters engaged, I think it also includes telling them the truth, both good and bad, about things and politicians. And when you hear a kid say, well, I don't like Trump or I don't like Biden, ask them why. Do they really understand why, what they're saying? Or are they just kind of vomiting back up what they hear their parents saying? Vilma says, during a second Trump presidency, he will pardon himself, the fake electors, the January 6th insurrectionists, no doubt about it. He said as much. Vilma, he said as much. Yeah. Deidre says there's a Washington Post headline, 2024 won't be a Trump-Biden replay. You can thank Gen Z for that. Okay, Deidre. Deidre giving me a little hope over here. Natalie says, ironically, we all got here because our ancestors gave up on their original countries. Yeah. And Sylvia says, Trump also said, watch what happens if he's indicted. He's calling to his fans to get ready for a civil war. This whole thing is frightening. Frightening, frightening, frightening. All right. There's so many more comments. You guys, thank you so much for getting involved in that discussion. I think I've read some scary things, some worst case scenarios that inspire me to get other people inspired to vote as well. And I think that's how we're going to get this taken care of and put to bed. All right, let's go on to a new topic now, because I think I've depressed you enough with all of that. Let's talk about this guy. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, this hiker in Death Valley, he was interviewed by the press and he's like, yeah, it's hot today. I'm out here in Death Valley hiking. You know, it's hot, but we take precautions. Had this big hat on. He has his face slathered with sunscreen, right? And he's in 121-degree heat in Death Valley. He's 71 years old. He lives in Los Angeles. His name is Stephen Curry. And he fell to the ground outside the restroom at Golden Canyon Trailhead, and he died. He had earlier in the day been interviewed by the LA Times. He hiked 2 miles from Golden Canyon to Zabriskie Point, talked to this LA Times reporter, and then he hiked back. And when he talked to the reporter, he's like, it's a dry heat, right? He also was pictured covered in sunscreen, wearing the sun hat, and huddled beneath a metal interpretive sign that afforded him a bit of shade. So it seems like he was already trying to cool himself down. There he is trying to get cooler. And so he's talking to reporters, you know, he's talking to people. He's out there hiking in this 121-degree heat. After he's at this point, he hikes back to the canyon where he parked his car, and he's almost to his car when he collapses near the restrooms there. and he's found on the ground. First responders arrive, and they can't revive him. It was so hot that they called for a medical helicopter, and they couldn't fly because of the heat. They're pretty sure heat was a factor in his death, though the official cause is still under investigation. It's sad. He's not the only one. There was a 65-year-old man that died earlier this month in the same area. It is really hot in these areas. And I guess my question is, why would you hike in this type of heat? Why would you go out and do that? I don't understand. I don't, I mean, I know you need your exercise. I just don't understand why anyone would do that, would bundle up and sunscreen up and get out there in 121 degrees. This is a time we should be inside. We should be using the new ice machine, taking a drink. We should not be outside hiking in 121-degree heat. I feel bad about that. I'm sad about that. Here's a story that came out a few days ago, and we hadn't covered it. It's interesting. We had meant to talk about it on the Mark Thompson show, and there's just so much to talk about that we never made it here. But I don't know if you've seen this story out of SF Gate. It's about Dianne Feinstein's husband's trust. And they're, I mean, incredibly wealthy. Well, she has a lot of medical bills from what happened in her during her time when she had shingles and was out for 3 months. And I guess her daughter was trying to, or she was trying to get some money from the trust to pay these medical bills. And it wasn't happening in a timely fashion. So her daughter has filed a petition on Dianne Feinstein's behalf in San Francisco Superior Court, asking to be named as the sole trustee for the trust of Richard Blum. That was Senator Feinstein's late husband, very wealthy husband. He died in 2022. Dianne Feinstein is the sole beneficiary of the trust until her death. And when she dies, then the money all goes to Blum's kids from a different marriage. So that's the way that will work. Feinstein's daughter, Catherine, who's filing to be the trustee to take care of all the financial matters for her mom, she is a daughter from an earlier marriage. She is not a beneficiary of the trust. But again, until her mom leaves this planet, she is the beneficiary of the trust. There are some serious allegations being made against the current trustees. Both of them are longtime business associates of Mr. Blum's. One is Mark Scholvink, the other is Michael Klein. The allegations are that they were improperly appointed as Blum's trustees. And since their improper appointment, according to this filing, they have failed to distribute the money Feinstein has requested to pay for her mounting medical bills, which are apparently significant. Despite, they say, Blum's intent to support his spouse after his death, the purported trustees have refused to make distributions to reimburse Senator Feinstein's medical expenses. I don't know why. When this guy was a gazillionaire. I mean, extra rich. So I don't understand why. Scholvink and Klein denying the allegations. They say they have never refused to make distributions to Feinstein, including for medical expenses. And they wonder what Catherine Feinstein's motives really are. So this is all messy. I hate it when it's messy. It seems like there's a trust in place, a plan in place. Everything should be cut and dried and everything should be fine. But something always happens when someone really rich dies. I don't know. They say the current trustees who do take a payout for working as a trustee, although I don't know what they're doing, maybe managing his portfolio still. They say they haven't been presented with any evidence showing Catherine Feinstein has power of attorney for her mother, nor has Catherine made it clear in this filing or directly to the two trustees why a sitting U.S. senator would require someone to have power of attorney over her. While my clients, they say, are deeply concerned, we all remain hopeful this is a misunderstanding and be quickly resolved. So we'll see how it goes. It's all, it's all messy. It's all messy. Have you guys ever had, we're coming up on Tim Sika time. Have you guys ever had problems with a trust or trustees or a will or someone taking stuff that they're not supposed to take? There was a case in my family way back when. I guess, and I never saw any of the money, but I guess my great, great, great grandparents had a lot of property in San Francisco. They owned like apartment buildings. They had accumulated some wealth and they had 3 kids. And one of their kids, as they declined mentally, created a company and appointed himself president and his wife the treasurer and managed to get a signature saying all the money was theirs at the end. And it worked. And that was that. And sadly, 2 of the siblings never talked to that other sibling ever again. The family split. That was it. It was over. It was a sad situation. One sibling walked away with the money. The rest of the families got nothing. But even more importantly, the relationship was completely broken. And for that reason, my grandfather, the one who served in World War II as a German translator, he always used to say, and always used to make sure that he was overboard on it. What you spent on one child would be exactly the amount you spent on the other. Everything equal, never an issue for anyone to complain about anything. Keep the whole money problem out of it. People get weird about money, especially during wills and stuff. I don't know. Let's see what you say. Karen says, unless you had an independent auditor who has authority. Oh, you're talking about pulling the plug. Yeah. I was trying to see if you guys had any will issues to talk about. Wes says, it's not just rich people. My husband came from Tennessee, very poor people. And in his family, someone passes, they fight over little things and it ruins relationships. Things like mom's ashtray. Really? Wow. God, Wes, people are weird, right? Like, who cares? Take the ashtray. I'm telling you. OCB says, excluding direct family members in the trust. Yikes. Karen says, it looks like they all want a piece of it. Trustees sound corrupt. Wonder if someone is hiding documents. Thank you, William, for the super sticker, the $25 super sticker. Speaking of money, this show's crowdfunded and we really appreciate it. The After Party Live says, busy moving accounts to the Cayman Islands. I see you, John Daly. I know what you're doing. Karen says the bills are all covered by her fantastic medical insurance she gets as a senator. Right. I thought everything was covered too, Karen. Her daughter's trying to get the money. I don't know. I mean, why would you come out and publicly state that if that's the case? Then you kind of make the whole thing public. So if your whole point is to get your fingers in the money pie, then maybe going public with it isn't the way to do that. Yeah. Looking at your comments here. Randy says everyone needs to have a will and or trust in place, no matter how much money or property you own. Yeah, take the problems right out of it. I had a family member who died, and she had hired a trustee. It was the lawyer, and I think they did something very unscrupulous. They signed an agreement on the back of an envelope in the hospital as she was uh, kind of on her deathbed and out of it, giving them, I think, 2/3 of the trust. It was rough. And then, of course, if you dispute anything according to the boilerplate will, then you get nothing. So if any of it's contested, then you and proven false, then you walk away with nothing. So people, because they see that, they're scared to stand up and say something, as my parents were. So I'm telling you, weird stuff happens. Randy says, when my dad died 10 years ago, I'm sorry about that, Randy, the funeral home people said that at some funerals, the family is arguing about money in the car on the drive to the cemetery. That is just not that time. Man. Um, I'm trying to see if you guys have any more will stuff to talk about. Now, PT writes, Feinstein doesn't have the time to deal with all of her personal affairs, and so she needs to appoint a POA. A POA does not mean the subject is incompetent. In fact, incompetence requires a durable POA. Well said. You sound like you know what you're talking about there. I would think, if you're a sitting US senator, and often in Washington D.C., that may be why her daughter filed the case in San Francisco, because she's not in San Francisco right now. Maybe I'm giving the daughter too much credit. Seemed reasonable to me too, though. OCB writes, I guarantee there are items not covered by her medical coverage. She was sick for a really long time. I don't know. Um, Natalie says, my uncle tore up my grandpa's will in the car on the way to the cemetery. Natalie, it's awful. Hopefully there was another copy. Maybe he was just really mad about it. Deidre says, if you die without a trust in place, the state of California gets a large portion of your estate before your heirs get their portion. Yeah. Randy references Aretha Franklin. Look at the mess that's recently found with her will that was found recently in a couch. If there are two like major will issues that happened in just my family, I'm thinking a lot of you guys have experienced these types of will issues, right? I don't know. Yeah, I guess we all need to get our trusts in place, get everything ready, make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. I have been remiss in that department, Randy. And so I will have you know that I will be getting right on that. How upset do you think? I mean, in my mind, once you're dead, you're dead. Like that's it. So asking how upset someone would be if their last wishes weren't followed, I guess can be a little silly because the person's gone. Like they're never going to know, right? But what would happen in your mind if you left a plan in place and then it wasn't followed? And how do you make sure that the plans that you put into place are followed? I don't know. I don't know. All right, let's look at this Chinese spy balloon story. This is the head of NORAD says the Chinese spy balloon, remember that when it flew across the United States, that it exposed gaps in the military's ability to detect threats. They gave an interview with NBC News. General Glenn Van Herk said radar was not looking for high altitude balloons traveling at very slow speeds through American airspace. He said the incident prompted the development of new surveillance technology. So that balloon flying across America showed that we aren't looking for threats and we haven't really covered all of our bases when we're doing that. So, I mean, maybe it was one of those good tests, right? To show, uh-oh, we're not looking for everything, and everybody's sitting down at a table and saying, all right, you tell me what else they could pop up there that we're not looking for. Where else are we exposed? So at least that's good. Did you see the story out of Stanford? I think I have a picture. The story out of Stanford, maybe I didn't put a picture in here. Story out of Stanford is that the president of Stanford is resigning because an article done by the Stanford Daily News, so student-run newspaper, right, uncovered that 5 of the research papers that he was involved in had problematic issues. He had not corrected the mistakes in his past research. The Stanford president's name is Mark Tessier Levine. And he this week has announced that he would be stepping down as the leader of the university. There were questions and allegations about the authenticity of images published in the scientific publications that he had been a co-author of. So at first, the spokespeople for Stanford, when this was uncovered by student journalists, said, Don't worry about it. It's nothing to see here. But the processes, protocols, and standards of university are such that when allegations are brought, the Stanford Board of Trustees has a special committee that then looks into whether there's fraud or falsification of any scientific data. And while they say, after now having done about faced and done an investigation, they say that Tessier Levine didn't personally engage in any fraud or falsification and was not aware of misconduct by others prior to those documents being published. It, they say, identified instances of manipulation of research data by others in his lab in 5 papers, and they found Tessier Levine should have been more diligent when seeking corrections. So maybe he didn't do it, but he wasn't saying we got to correct this now either. Because of that, he is an award-winning neuroscientist, by the way. He said, they said, the report, that he failed to decisively and forthrightly correct the mistakes in the scientific record. And so he has stepped down. He said, I didn't do what you expected of me, and I'm out. And I respect that you show that you made a mistake, even though at first they tried to brush it aside. When it was discovered that he could have done more, that he made a mistake, that he was out of there. So, okay. It is time to turn to my very good friend, Tim Sika, because it is a huge, huge, huge weekend. Barbenheimer is upon us. A lot of people may be thinking they're going to go make it a double feature with Barbie and Oppenheimer. And Tim Sika has seen both of these movies and more and joins us now to review them. Tim Sika, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. Barbenheimer. Oh my gosh. Really? I mean, who gets paid to come up with these kinds of publicity campaigns? You know, when I was in PR, if I had come up with something like Barbenheimer at a meeting, they would have laughed me out of the meeting. I mean, Barbenheimer? Come on. Anyway, yeah, I'm kind of preparing you for, Nikki was sort of right. I think after I got off last week, she said, I don't think Tim Sika is going to like Barbie. Well, well, I don't know. How are you doing?
I'm good. Let me, before we jump into it, I wanted to show you, I found a place that I think is perfect for you. If you're looking to buy a new place, maybe move to the coast, start a life on the beach.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah.
There's a movie theater for sale.
Oh, Bay?
Huh. Yeah. It is in Morro Bay. Let me take this comment off the screen. It is in Morro Bay. It is a movie theater with an apartment right above.
Oh man.
I know.
Man, it's like The Majestic, that movie, The Majestic. Oh my gosh.
It's very fancy.
Ooh.
Well, it's actually, I would say, I thought it would be fancier inside because it looks old. But
yeah,
inside,
the outside does,
it has a vaulted ceiling, but it's bare wood. So that's what the movie theater looks like.
Yeah.
But the apartment upstairs is supposed to be pretty nice. And this place is for sale for 1.6 mil. But you get the movie theater and the apartment for a price of, a condo in San Francisco.
Yeah, right? Really? I'm assuming it is an independently owned and operated theater.
Yeah, this woman, her name is Mary Lou Giannopoulos. She's owned it since 1973, and she's kept prices really low. It's 340 seat auditorium. You get a large popcorn and a large Coke for $12.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, and considering that in a real theater that would cost like 30 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Movie tickets at her at the Bay are $10. You're going to have to raise prices a little bit, I think.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I want this. Boy, anybody listening that wants to get me a birthday present, my birthday's in December. I mean, I'm open to it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be like a dream job for me, Right? I mean, it would be a blast, wouldn't it? Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Anyway, I saw that and I thought of you.
That's cool. Thank you.
Something else before we talk about Barbie that I wanted to show you are these pictures of the Barbie premiere in London.
Yeah.
And I'm not usually one of these kind of shallow people that are like, who are you wearing?
Yeah, who are you wearing? Yeah.
Or like, ooh, but these outfits are incredible. I mean,
yeah, they're really nice. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's
Who designed it? Do you know?
so, Vivian Westwood, actually,
Okay.
and I
Well,
know that because all the outfits are based on old Barbie outfits, and
oh,
this is the Vivian
cool.
Westwood Barbie, and so, yeah, everything is based on the same thing, on on
Wow.
the outfits of Barbie, so really cool, but man, does that dress look pretty on her. I was
Yeah, it
just
really
so
does. Well,
yeah,
Margot Robbie wears
yeah,
pretty much anything great,
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
So let's jump into it. What did you think?
Well, okay. Well, I should say to begin with that this movie was directed by Greta Gerwig, who is doing more directing these days than acting. She's a very good actress, by the way.
Yeah.
And she co-wrote the screenplay alongside her partner, Noah Baumbach, who's a very good independent filmmaker. As for the plot, which has to do with a matriarchal society composed of all these different Barbies and various Kens, we're all Barbies and we're all Kens, don't you know? That's what they tell us in this movie. Anyway, I would suggest just consulting Wikipedia because it's a really complicated plot. But as for the movie itself, I want to say it's terrible,
Oh,
but it's really not. And to be fair, me wanting to say that it's terrible is really only my reaction to all of the hype that's screaming at everybody that it's so great. I mean, I can't tell you how bombarded I've been in my emails about how great this movie is. It's probably not terrible. It's colorful. I'll give it that, but it's still a lousy, dumb movie. It
ugh,
seemed for a number of reasons. It seemed confused as to what kind of movie it wanted to be. Is this a satire? Is it a musical? Is it some sort of parody? What? All during the movie, I kept saying, "What is this? And who was this movie made for? Who's
yeah.
this movie for? And what is its point?" I mean, I think I know what its point is. I want to mention that in just a bit here, but it, like that awful Babylon of last year, it seemed to be made. It seemed almost like it was therapy for the filmmaker and the filmmaker alone, which is fine, right? But cinematic masturbation is still cinematic masturbation. Anyway, I have so many issues with this movie. For one, most of the jokes didn't land, although the movie really thought it was hilarious. The screenplay was, in my opinion, pretentious, smug,
Oh,
self-righteous, a bit snobbish, very smart-assy, preachy, on the nose, whiny. It went out of its way too to appear woke by,
mhm,
casting all these people as if you're supposed to go, oh yeah, good. There's an Asian. Oh, there's an African American. Oh, there's a Filipino. Oh, that's all good. We've checked all the boxes. And most annoying of all, and the thing that I kept picking up on as if it were some kind of subtext. And I know this is my read and my read only,
yeah.
but there was a kind of, maybe I'm overthinking this, right? But there was a kind of unspoken contemptuousness pervading the screenplay, a sort of passive aggressive contemptuousness of anyone who might disagree with its feminist message. And to the feminist message, America Ferrara, she's a wonderful actress. She plays a Mattel employee, Mattel being the toy manufacturer who created the Barbie doll. She has this feminist speech, like an oration at one point in the film, which is tonally in opposition to the rest of this movie, which presumably is supposed to be a comedy. But she has this feminist speech whose sentiments I am 100% in accord with, but it came out of nowhere
Hmm.
and felt as though it belonged in or came from another different movie. So I'm going, okay, now what am I? Yeah, I agree with what am I? Anyway, which brings me to the tone of the piece, which I found grating. I found it schizophrenic. Musical numbers appeared to be arbitrarily inserted into this movie for the hell of it, as if to say, look how cute we are. And worst
Yeah.
of all, the characters were just stick figures, fake, plastic,
Oh,
lacking dimension of any kind, which again,
yeah.
to be fair, is to point out what is probably the best thing about this Barbie movie, the two lead performances by Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. Gosling in particular. I mean, Robbie is always great. She's this, yeah, she's like a mutant actress. She can play and do anything. Gosling in particular is really, really funny. Both of whom actually create something out of nothing, which were these cardboard characters of Ken and Barbie they were playing as written in the screenplay. So to me, Barbie is more a media event than anything else, more of a stunt picture than an actual movie, let alone a real film. And I think if all traces of hype were removed from the film's release, I doubt anybody would really be interested in it to the extent that everybody appears to be. But the
Mhm.
media frenzy created by studio publicists around this movie, it's as though they knew it was like, maybe it wasn't awful, but they thought, well, I don't know how the movie going public is going to react to this. But it had a, it's like they felt that the emperor has no clothes sort of
Yeah.
thing. So they all stayed up 24/7 for months on end to convince themselves, but mostly you, the movie going public, that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, Barbenheimer. Anyway, the great Helen Mirren narrates this movie, which is another great thing about it. But
Really?
yeah, she does. She narrates it. And fans of Helen Mirren will immediately recognize her. But it's a non-story. She says in the beginning of the movie that thanks to Barbie, all problems of feminism have been solved. Okay, great, fine. Too bad the problem and the challenge of making a really good movie were seemingly ignored in what I found to be a painful, interminable train wreck of a something. It's certainly not a movie, let alone a film. Maybe I needed to be stoned to appreciate it. But the friend that I saw it with said halfway through, whispered over to me, said, I'm wondering how this movie would play if I were stoned. I don't know, who knows. But I didn't like it at all. And believe me, I really wanted to.
That's a bummer. I was hoping it would be really good. So,
well, I mean,
say that.
I always tell people, don't take my word for it.
No,
Go see it, and you may think otherwise. But
so the comment from John with the afterparty.live says they're appealing to younger audiences. But I would argue this, even if they're appealing
yeah,
to younger audiences, you still have to have substance, right? Because younger people want a good story too. I've
yeah, yeah.
I've
Well,
also seen oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. No, yeah,
No, I
yeah.
also wanted to
He,
bring up that we saw another comment from a woman who was saying, why haven't moms groups been complaining about this? Because I think there's a feminism aspect to it. That's probably why. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there is. I think the whole movie. I think the point of the movie was in its feminist message.
Hmm.
Again, which there is a really, really good scene, but it sticks out tonally from the rest of the movie. Uh, yeah, I think that was the point of the movie. Then why didn't they just, I don't know. They just, to me, it was just tonally, it was bizarre. And, it's interesting. I saw it an early screening and I saw it with a crowd who was predisposed to liking it. And it really didn't get much of a reaction. And it didn't get any applause at the end, which is usually telling. Usually
Yeah.
these like big publicity campaigns will at least convince people that want to see it, that are there thinking it's going to be good. They convince themselves that they like it, maybe that they don't. I just don't. I think I could be wrong, but my feeling is just like this movie's going to be forgotten in a month, maybe even in a couple of weeks. Although they're already, Variety is running stories about it.
Yeah.
Will it be an Oscar competition and blah,
Oh,
blah, blah.
wow.
I know. So I don't, sometimes people see movies for reasons that totally
Yeah.
baffle me. I don't get this. I think if there was no hype on this movie at all, I think people would really be ragging on it.
Is it a movie for kids? Like, is it good for girls, would you say?
That's a really, really good question. The fella said that they were aiming for a younger audience. If they were, I can see where a younger audience would find some of it kind of cute, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of references that I would think would go way over young kids. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who they made this movie for. I think Greta Gerwig made it because she wanted to make a movie with this pro-feminist statement, and she
Yeah.
was trying to like juggle a lot of balls in the air. But I just didn't think it worked. I didn't
What's
think it
the
worked at all.
what's the rating on this one?
Probably PG, because there
Okay.
really isn't anything offensive in it at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and as I'm watching it, I'm going, yeah, this is kind of right when you think it's going to kick in and work, it just goes in some weird direction. And yeah, I'm sounding superfluous here. I didn't get it. I didn't get any of it, and I also didn't think it was particularly entertaining. I was kind of bored by it. After 20 minutes, I thought, boy, if this thing doesn't kick in, and to me, it never kicked in. It just
Oh.
got more pretentious. you
I'm so
know.
disappointed. Did you see the pictures? I'm sure you've seen the pictures of how they bought this place in Malibu and painted this house on the
Oh
beach
yeah. Oh
pink, and
yeah. Yeah.
like they seem to have spent a lot of money to make this
I,
thing.
I think the publicity campaign for this Barbie movie should win an Oscar. They don't have publicity campaigns for Oscars, but they really did an amazing job. It's just I wasn't convinced at all. And that's just me. And again, I always fall back on the thing, well, maybe I just see too many movies, you know. And sometimes it's just like, well, what
Yeah,
am I supposed, and it may be some kind of new way of telling a story that
yeah.
I don't get, but I admit I didn't get any of it. I just, ugh. If
Well,
somebody said, should I go? I'd say, yeah. But and if they said, what did you think of it? I say, well, I hated it, but you might like it. I
it's
don't
apparently
know.
it's a PG-13 is what I'm being
Oh, it is
told.
well, maybe
Yeah,
because of the, probably because of the sexual innuendo. Yeah, there
yeah.
is some sexual innuendo
But
there.
it's like what did I see? I think went to see the Lord of the Rings, or it was a Star Wars movie where they
Uh-huh.
basically at the very beginning they incinerate an entire village worth of people. And there's like
Oh,
6,
yeah.
7-year-old kids sitting in there. People
Yeah.
don't look at the ratings and they don't read the reviews of what's really gonna happen, what your kids are gonna be seeing. So I'm envisioning this Barbie movie with a bunch of 5 and 6-year-old girls sitting in there.
No, I would say no, not for young girls. No, not
Mm-mm.
young kids. Maybe like, maybe preteen, I guess. That's a tough one for me because I don't have kids, and I always say
Yeah.
I look at the kid, and if the child seems like they want to see it, they seem reasonably sophisticated and
Mhm.
intelligent. It's like, yeah, yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who I would recommend this movie to.
Let's move on to Oppenheimer because I'm excited about this one too.
Yeah, the brainy and always challenging director Christopher Nolan is back with a brainy and challenging summer epic about the so-called father of the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and in many ways, this is a kind of a typical Christopher Nolan movie, very heady, like I said, brainy, tending more towards the intellectual side of things as opposed to the emotional, kind of cold. That's a style, dramatically remote, which is to say, it almost refuses. Well, it doesn't refuse to allow you in, but it makes you. It makes you work. Let me say that it refuses to allow you in the way in which traditional movie drama does.
Mhm.
You have to work to fully appreciate Christopher Nolan's movies, and they don't always. Well, in my opinion, they hardly ever cater to the viewer. Maybe the Batman movies that he did, but even those. And anyway, it's funny. I thought this one, a biographical thriller about J. Robert Oppenheimer, would be a little more conventional in its approach, but it's more Christopher Nolan than ever. It's a meal. I would describe this as a meal of a movie. Dense dialogue, lots of talk, and lots to think about, to ruminate over, and a movie impossible for me anyway, to fully digest upon one viewing. So what
Yeah.
else is there to say about Oppenheimer? It's long. It's 3 hours. It's kind of dizzying, but it's also powerful and very confident. It sort of presumes that you know some of this history, the race against the Germans and the
Mhm.
Nazis, who were the first. I didn't realize this. That they were the first, the Nazis were the first to split the atom. But so anyway, there was this, race to build the first atomic bomb, Los Alamos and the Manhattan Project, the US dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, all of that. It presumes you know some of that, including Oppenheimer's past, his controversial
Mhm.
past, and his communist associations, the politics of the time, and that whole era. I think it helps to know some of that, though I don't think it's essential. So, yeah, as far as what if I did I like the movie? I really like this movie. Actually, it would be more accurate to say that I really like this movie more in retrospect. While
Mhm.
watching it, I was more admiring and appreciative of it as this kind of epic tale of cautionary history. I also appreciated it because one of the things it also presumes is the intelligence of its audience, the movie-going public. This is probably one of the smartest summer movie release epics that I've ever seen. Um, the cast is great. I mean, Cillian Murphy plays Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt is magnificent as his wife. Matt Damon plays General Leslie Groves, who headed the Manhattan Project, where the first atomic bomb was built. Tom Conti, of all people, plays Albert Einstein. Gary Oldman plays President Harry Truman. And the score is a really, really great one. It's very impressive music that kind of overwhelms the drama for the most part, and strangely seems to be in contention with the drama, fighting for your attention, which I found unusual and strange and curious. But it was obviously a deliberate choice on the part of Nolan, but it was really interesting and bold. And it did something that worked for the story that they wanted to tell. So what to say in summation here, I think Oppenheimer is a major cinematic achievement. Philosophically, it's about the consequences of dealing with one's actions long after certain life-altering decisions were made. In the case of Robert Oppenheimer, knowing that you were responsible for creating a weapon of mass destruction, which literally and profoundly changed the world. And what did Einstein say in that famous quote? When the atom was split, everything changed, save, what was that quote? Yeah, everything changed, save man's mode of thinking. Thus, we drift toward unparalleled catastrophe. Anyway, that famous quote. Yeah, Oppenheimer. If you allow it in, dollars to donuts, it will affect you on a really deep level, but in unexpected ways, surprising ways. Even the detonation of the first atomic bomb is depicted here may surprise you. But when all is said and done, I think it may very well be the best Hollywood film of the year so far. Anyway, yeah.
So I was reading this article on SF Gate about the one of the scenes in the movie, which was this meeting between Oppenheimer and Truman. And I guess there's, the questions are, was this historically accurate? Did that really happen? And the thinking is that it did happen. And not only did it happen, but Truman called Oppenheimer a
crybaby. Yeah. It's funny. When I saw that scene, David McCullough wrote a great book about Harry Truman. And maybe that's where I originally, where it was originally, like, where I heard about it first, because I had forgotten about it. But when Truman came into office, he was very insecure because he was following FDR. And in the beginning, Truman, I think he acted kind of, I don't know, I want to say inappropriately. His insecurity was present in a lot of the things he said and a lot of the things he did. He grew in office and he became very confident and, very, very strong in his convictions. He made unpopular decisions and stuff. But that scene, I think, really brilliantly captured that part of Truman's character that was just, it hadn't been refined by the presidency yet. It was, he was still insecure. Yeah, because the scene is Oppenheimer goes in there and he says, I don't know about what I did. And Truman says, well, you have to know I did this and I was responsible for this and I made this decision and, get the hell out of here. And I think he says when he leaves that he was a crybaby, but yeah, it's a very, very good scene. There's a number of great scenes like that in the movie.
So I guess there's a book called American Prometheus, and they say that
won the Pulitzer Prize, I think. Yeah.
Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands.
Yeah, that was the line. Yeah.
So Truman says, he throws him a handkerchief and says, would you like to wipe your hands? And then American Prometheus says, I told him blood was on my hands to let me worry about that. And Truman goes on to apparently be overheard saying afterward, you don't go around belly aching about this. You don't say it. You don't even say it. You don't belly ache about it. We did it. That's it.
Yeah.
That kind of that's very cold. That's very, that you're not self-introspective at all, not looking into what you did. I feel like I'd be more like Oppenheimer, like what just happened. Now, what have I done?
Yeah, me too. And Truman, to the end of his days, he would not take back the fact that he made the decision to drop those 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He didn't even want to discuss it. Maybe that was his way of dealing with it because, And then there was a whole argument about, we had to do that because Japan refused to surrender, and we would have lost all these millions, of soldiers, because we would have had to invade the mainland of China, and we'd have all these losses. And it took who knows? I don't know. It's a complicated argument, but yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you didn't like Barbie, but you did like Oppenheimer. So if I'm going to pick one, it's going to be Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, hands down. There's no contest.
So,
but again, they're two totally different movies. I mean,
we started a little late, so I don't mind if we run a little over. Let's talk about theater camp, because my kids every summer go to theater camp. This is
really,
the first summer
gosh,
that they haven't, because
okay,
they didn't like the play that was being done, or the musical, which is Rock of Ages. They didn't have any interest in that.
Well, just thinking about this movie, Theater Camp, makes me laugh and grin and giggle. It's a comedy. It's a comedy, like a mockumentary, which is a comedy done in the style of a documentary, only it's a fictional movie. And it's about a summer theater camp for kids who are all they're these aspiring actors, singers, dancers, playwrights, a kind of hard scrabble, kind of scrappy theater camp in upstate New York, run by a woman who has a seizure. This is so terrible. I know it's played for comedy. She has a seizure during one of the camp's productions of Bye Bye Birdie. The strobe light in one of the scenes causes her to go into a coma. So her dude bro son, I mean, and he's the definition of dude bro, he's tasked with keeping the camp from foreclosure. And so this dude bro, his name is Troy, I think, he has to join forces with the theater camp's band of eccentric teachers and students to come up with a solution to keep the camp running. And before the camp's production of a play, an original play called Still Joan, written to honor the woman who fell into a coma. Her name was Joan. before the production goes on. And from afar, I've always been a kind of a theater nerd myself, so I loved every single thing about this movie, every reference, every joke, the way these kids, budding performers, all were depicted. This movie is a theater geek's comedy dream. I mean, if you think this is Spinal Tap, but whereas that movie was for heavy metal band geeks, Theater Camp was particularly designed for, or will certainly appeal the most to, theater nerds. But I also think it will still play funny to those unfamiliar with the strange and weird, but really sweet theater scene or theater milieu, because it's almost as if they were writing this also with another audience in mind, and to create a potential interest in theater for those who know nothing about it or just never think about it. So it's a sweet, funny movie. The screenplay is one of the best of the year. It's clever and witty and knowing. I think the movie itself, though, it's interesting. You said you're talking about your kids. I think the movie will be best appreciated by adults who have kids that go to these theater camps, but I think sophisticated kids will dig it too. Certainly kids who are aspiring thespians themselves. I just found it to be the funniest movie I've seen this year. It's sweet, it's affectionate, it's loving, and a kind of tribute to the people who make up and certainly want to be a part of the theatrical world. So I just found it charming and sweet and funny, and I laughed all the way through it. Usually, sometimes comedies have, they'll have 20 minutes where you're laughing and then like a whole draggy section. This movie was like kept up the humor all the way through. Yeah. So, and Kim, have you've gone to the productions, right, of the theater camps that your kids? Yeah. Oh,
multiple. I'm telling you, you don't know how many times I had to see Matilda. They were in two different groups. One was in the young group, one was in the old group. I think I had to go see that thing like 7 times.
Oh my gosh! Then you know that show very well.
Yeah, because I'd like to have always someone in the audience for that child. Like at least one person is there to see you, right? And so it ended up being me.
Yeah,
over
of
and
course.
Over again.
Yeah, Mom. Yeah. No, but I think you will love this movie. I mean, you'll get a kick out of it. Yeah. So I just thought it captured the whole. A lot of kids. Theater people are. I don't want to say they're colorful.
Yes.
They're expressive. They're so that can sometimes look to the quote unquote normal person as these people are really weird. But this movie captures all of that in such a sweet and loving way. It almost makes you want to be as colorful as the kids that want to go into theater, because it's so sweet. It's just so sweet. And I loved all the references too. I mean, there's a scene where this young boy, he's doing a scene from a straight play where he's playing a father. He's like 12 years old, and he's being directed by, Ben Platt is in this movie. He's one of the camp directors. He's famous, Dear Evan Hansen, he's famous for. He plays one of the camp instructors, and he was one of the writers of the screenplay. He tells him, hey, you need to do this better. And the kid says, I'm a kid. I don't know how to be a father. To which the instructor responds, did Julianne Moore have dementia? And I thought, God, what a thing to tell the kid. Anyway, that was a reference to Julianne Moore's Oscar-winning turn in Still Alice, and the play that they're preparing for is called Still Joan. I mean, the movie is full of hilarious bits like that, and I said it out of context, so it may not seem as funny, but within context of the movie, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's just a wonder. It moves with alacrity and like a witty pace, and it ends on an even bigger laugh than what all came before that big laugh. So,
is it only in theaters or is it streaming?
It's only in theaters right now, but you know how fast these things come to streaming. Sometimes within a week or two. Yeah. So theater camp, yeah. Theater
camp made for me. I'm definitely gonna. It's at the top of my list. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, I can't wait to know what you think of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Tim Sika, thank you for being here every Friday. You bring such joy to me and to everyone else. You do. I love it. I wait for it all week.
Well, thank you for letting me run on at the mouth about these movies. I really do tend to run on when I'm talking to you and Nikki. But thank you for having me. I love being on your show. Thanks.
All right. Until next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Have
Tim
a good one.
Sika.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. You too. Bye. All right. Some people to thank this Friday. Thank you so much for contributing to the show. I can't tell you how much Nikki and I appreciate it so much. So the lady Beatrice with the $5 super sticker talking about the mom groups. I just mentioned that to Tim Sika, so we did talk about it. Thank you, the lady Beatrice. Wes in Florida, thank you for the $5 super sticker. You are so appreciated. Another one from the lady Beatrice today. Here's for that first cup of coffee to have at your talk premiere, talking about theafterparty.live. Luis, thank you for the $5 super sticker for the pre-after party. Looking forward to the new show. Thank you. I'm looking forward to having you along for the ride there as well. And William Lundgren wore $25 today, contributing to the show. So grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it very much. And Deidre with a contribution, $20 super sticker. Deidre from Lozica Concrete. Again, as Mark says, for all your concrete needs. So thank you very much, all of you, for contributing to the show. If you would like to do so via PayPal or Patreon, you can always go to thenikkimadoroshow.com, and something free to do, just go ahead and click the thumbs up button to show your support of the show. Thank you for doing that as well. And again, I will mention it coming August 1st when all these shows change their time frame. Nikki going from 9 to 11, Mark from 11 to 1, and we introduce theafterparty.live. You can go to that website, theafterparty.live, and please do it today. Click subscribe. Do it right now when the show ends. Subscribe. Let's get it going, and we'll do that from 1 to 2 p.m. starting on August 1st. Thank you so much for being part of the Nikki Maduro show today, for being part of the conversation. I hope you have a really good weekend. You can always email me. It is Kim McAllister, KIMMCCALLISTER, 2 M's, 2 C's, 2 L's, at gmail.com. Let me know what you thought of Barbie, Oppenheimer. Let me know your comments on what we talked about on the show today. Always, if you didn't have time to participate, or maybe you had some thoughts later on, always love to hear that. So I will end the Nikki Maduro show, as we always do, with my boy. This is Jacob. Thank you so much.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.